Welcome everyone to this video on something I'm watching very closely right now. Now, this isn't very much like some of my other videos, and it could potentially be nothing, but I think this thing that I'm watching right now has the potential to potentially be the most interesting video, the most interesting story that I cover on my channel. So I just want to get into it at the beginning because this is really has my eye right now. Okay, so what's going on? Well, today, January 19th, the price of palladium is skyrocketing. Um, as an investment, I'm not really interested, but looking at the facts around the situation as a case study, this could be absolutely fascinating. Why could it be fascinating? Well, I believe the demand for some precious metals exceeds the supply at current prices, but I also believe that as it stands and what it looks like it will stand, that probably will never matter. Well, now you may ask, how can that be? If the demand for something is greater than the supply, then the price should go up. I mean, that makes logical sense. Until you consider that there are futures. As long as the vast majority agrees that a future of some precious metal or something has the same value as the metal itself, the price can be set by anyone that has a big enough balance sheet to and the will to set a price. How can that be? You may be asking. Well, simple way of explaining this is if you're a trillionaire, you have all the money in the world, and you think that palladium or gold or whatever should be $100 an ounce, and you have the futures market on your side, well, then you could keep selling futures of gold or palladium or whatever until you basically have increased the supply by so much that the price would decrease as much as you want. Now, if everyone accepts that the futures are just as good as the metal itself, then eventually you could overwhelm the market and push the price basically wherever you want by just increasing the supply. And as most people only own these things for assets, to have assets, and don't really want to possess ownership of the metal themselves, well, they just kind of cash settle or trade it to the next person and never end up taking delivery of the metal, and it doesn't make a difference. Now you may be thinking, well, isn't this incredibly risky? What happens if people want their metal? Well, that's a good question because isn't part of the value of a precious metal that it's rare? And wouldn't having infinite supply distort the rarity? Well, that's where palladium comes in. If you're scratching your heads right now, I'll explain. There are currently 42,000, slightly more than 42,600 ounces of gold, of palladium in the COMEX inventory. Now, because each contract that sells on the COMEX is for 100 ounces, that means there can currently be about 426, well, not about, 426 contracts worth of palladium that can be delivered to all the people that think they own palladium. Now let's put that 426 contracts into context. At the current price of $1,335 an ounce, that'll probably change by the time this video gets published, but approximately that's $56.87 million. So less than $57 million for the entire supply of palladium, entire official supply of palladium in the world. It's not that much, especially when you consider that currently there are 22,550 contracts worth of people that think they own palladium. Are you getting to see the problem now? Before you get too excited at this 50 to 1 ratio, or as excited as I may seem to be, I think you should know that it's not all that uncommon for leverage ratios to be way up there in the precious metals futures market. What's not common is for there to be this few, I should say, contracts worth of inventory outstanding. Now you're probably thinking, why is he talking about palladium? It's a tiny niche market, niche of a niche market that doesn't really make any difference. Why is he so hyped about this? Well, let's see. The price has spiked based on a short-term supply imbalance. So the bullion banks, the banks with the infinite balance sheets that could, hypothetically, if they wanted to, affect the price of precious metals, have logically been shorting the price spike to make money when it mean reverts. Now, every day, why do I think it's them? Because every day as the COMEX opens, and some other people have pointed to this chart, the price gets pushed down, or on massive volume, so a lot of contracts have been shorted. Meaning, if enough contracts need to get delivered, so more than 426, how will all of these people that are not producing palladium, how are they going to deliver? How are these banks going to deliver the palladium that they owe to people? Now, if you're still like, so what, you don't care, maybe I should clarify. Part of the reason, there's two main reasons that I care. One is I want to see what happens. And I'm a curious person. I love seeing different scenarios, how they play out. But secondly, there's the potential for this problem to spill over. Now, what do I mean by spill over? Well, hypothetically, if you're someone and you're hypothetically bullish on something like gold, and you want a simple way of owning a large quantity of gold. So you might go for liquidity's sake and some other sakes, you could go to the futures market. You could buy then tons of gold. But then, what if you see that $3 billion worth of platinum or palladium owners don't actually own any palladium? They can't get it. It doesn't currently exist. So if I'm really bullish on physical gold and I might someday want to be in possession of the gold that I paid for, would I really be wanting to see that if the gold ran out, there might not be enough for me, and I might not get the gold that I paid for because I'm sharing it with 50 or 100 other people? I mean, as an aside here, if you're honestly thinking about if some big executive at some big gold company shared a similar view on thinking that bullion banks might be suppressing price, they could think about buying, I don't know, 50, $100 million of palladium and wanting it to be delivered. Now, sure, there's the risk of the price of palladium crashing, and they would have to take delivery of it. It's not like they have a facility where they would house precious metals. I mean, that wouldn't happen. But then, what's the potential reward? Well, A, potential reward is bullion banks get exposed or potentially get in trouble. Or B, what happens if this problem coming to light causes people to want delivery of their gold and thus prove on the COMEX that there may be a shortage of gold? And if the price from that drain of gold were to only spike it by 20%, meaning at these prices a $250 increase in gold, well, all of a sudden the million ounces or more that a big gold producer might produce are worth $250 million more. And that's per year, million ounces per year, or potentially significantly more. Now, what I can say based on my view of some sentiment around is that honestly, I could see some valuing reward A potentially almost as much as reward B. Anyway, back to the scenario at hand. This probably doesn't blow up. The banks, that is, probably get some last minute delivery that who knows how they got, who knows from where, but they probably end up with enough to drudge on and keep this whole situation under wraps. Now, the contracts only end at the end of February and then they go up for delivery in mid-March. But basically, this is just a situation that I want to keep watching because I want to see how this turns out. Not to mention that even if this does happen, there's absolutely no guarantee that anyone outside of the people who don't get delivery of their Palladium will notice or care. But anyway, thanks for watching, those of you who took a chance on this off-topic video, and if anyone ends up watching this one. So if you have any questions or comments about anything I said, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. And I'm interested in knowing how any of you, think that this will resolve itself, if nothing will happen, or if the whole system's going to go down. I don't know. I'm just curious as to what other people are thinking of this situation. Um, yeah, it's just something interesting that I read and thought I should share because I find it absolutely fascinating. But yeah, thanks for watching again. Catch you next time. Enjoy.